All right, hi guys, welcome. Welcome everyone, and happy AAPI Heritage Month. I'm excited to kick off our event tonight, A Healing Mindset, so just wanted to welcome all of you guys here. We also want to celebrate the Mental Health Awareness Month. And so my name is Amanda Kim, and I'm the president of the Mental Health Student Group at Johns Hopkins School of Public Health, and I'll be your MC facilitating today's discussion. So thank you guys all again for joining us tonight. I'm going to give a couple minutes of thanks to our sponsors and our supporters. So first, I want to acknowledge that this event was made possible by the leadership of the Asia Pacific Public Health Network, the Korean Student Association, the Inter-Asia Council, and the Graduate Korean Student Association. And we also want to thank all of our sponsors, Asia Pacific Public Health Network, Bloomberg School of Public Health Student Assembly, Inter-Asian Council, Bloomberg School of Public Health Department of Mental Health, Multicultural Affairs, BSPH IDARE, Center for Health Education and Wellbeing, Chinese Student Association, Korean Student Association, East Asian Studies Program, Taiwanese American Student Association, and Korean American Student Association. We also want to be thanking our supporters, the Johns Hopkins Mental Health Group and the Alpha Kappa Phi for their work. This event would not have been possible with the help and kindness of all of these organizations, as well as the support of the Bloomberg School of Public Health staff and our school deans. So naming a few, namely Dean Michael Ward, Brittany Claridge, and Becky Newcomer, Bloomberg School of Public Health, Dr. Jackie Stone, Executive Director of Student Wellbeing, Kevin Lindstadt, and Eric Cox from Security, and a special thanks to some of our VIP members today, Annie Zhao, Alan Kim, Gabriel Lopez, C-State, Yasmin Esau from the Bloomberg School of Public Health Student Assembly, Kwame Phillips from the Multicultural Affairs, Carolyn Harris from the Leadership, Engagement, and Experiential Development, Phyllis Wilson from Turner's Room, and Dean Barry Solomon from the School of Medicine. So we want to thank all of our sponsors and supporters for all of their time, support, and kindness throughout the event planning process. To kick us off, we have a lot of undergrads, a lot of graduate students, postdocs, faculty, and staff from all over Hopkins here tonight. So whether you are here in person or watching the recording from tonight's event, we hope that tonight's event will instigate the start of some important conversations about the importance of mental health and how our campus and students can be advocates for this change. So now I'm going to go ahead and invite our panelists to the stage. First, we have Dr. Susan Hahn and Dr. Michelle Kaufman. Dr. Susan Hahn is the Associate Director for Outreach and is a Senior Staff Psychologist at the Johns Hopkins University Counseling Center. Her work and passion are in outreach and mental health promotion, specifically around reducing mental health stigma and increasing access to treatment for traditionally underserved populations. So if we can have Dr. Susan Hahn. She's coming. You can sit right here. And then next we have Dr. Michelle Kaufman, who's an associate professor from the Department of Health, Behavior, and Society with a joint appointment in the Department of International Health at Bloomberg School of Public Health. Her research interests are in designing, implementing, and evaluating technology-driven interventions to reduce health disparities and to promote wellness among vulnerable populations. So if we can bring Dr. Michelle Kaufman to the stage. And then lastly, we have Eric, Eddie, and Brian Nam. I'm going to individually introduce them. So we have Eric Nam, who is a singer-songwriter, TV personality, and entrepreneur. He was named GQ Korea's Man of the Year and Forbes 30 Under 30 Asia. And he is one of the most extensively touring Asian artists in the world. And he also is a co-founder and lead creative at Mindset and Dive Studios. And he received a BA in International Studies with honors from Boston College. So if we can give a warm welcome to Eric Nam. And then next we have Eddie Nam, who's the founder and CEO of EN Management, home to artists such as Eric Nam, AAPI, Tableau, and includes a roster of Grammy-nominated producers and songwriters. EN Management also provides consulting services for some of the world's leading record labels. He also is a co-founder and VP of talent at Mindset and Dive Studios. And Eddie graduated from Northeastern University, where he was a member of the men's soccer program. So if we can have Eddie to the stage. And then our last panelist is Brian Nam, who is the co-founder and CEO at Mindset and Dive Studios, currently leading both teams in our whole South Korea and Los Angeles, California offices. Brian attended Columbia University, where he was a member of the men's soccer program as well. So if we can have Brian Nam to the stage. All right, so to kick off our event, we're actually going to have Eric, Eddie, and Brian introduce to all of our audience here a little bit more about Mindset, what it is, how it got started. So if we can have you guys introduce the app to us.
Well, hello, everybody. Thanks for making time and joining us tonight. Is today Thursday? It is, right?
I think so.
On this Thursday, and from what I hear, you guys are in reading period, so you have finals coming up soon. Good luck. I don't miss those at all. But thank you for being here, taking time out of your schedule. My brothers and I, we created Dive Studios and subsequently Mindset, which launched in February of 2021. So we wanted to just kind of talk you through a little bit about what it was and what it is today, for those of you who may not be familiar. So I don't know, who wants to tell the story?
Do we start from the beginning?
You can do whatever you want.
Very beginning. Okay. Feel free to jump in if I get my facts wrong.
Yeah.
So like Eric said, we started out as Dive Studios, which we started in August of 2019. So about 2.5 years ago. And we started Dive with the very simple goal of creating podcast and media content for K-pop fans in that community, particularly internationally. And Eric, being who he is, he was the perfect person to kick it off. And very quickly what we found was that people really love these podcasts. And that allowed us to double down and really start building out an entire podcast network with other K-pop artists and names like Tableau, Jamie Park, Jay of Day 6, and the list goes on. And I think very early into Dive Studios, we start to really understand why it was growing so quickly. Like, people were really resonating with the content that we were making. And as we talked to our listeners in the general audience, what we found was that by giving celebrities a platform to really share their most authentic stories, their most human thoughts and emotions and experiences, that was what was giving this younger generation a lot of value, because they were feeling less alone, they were feeling seen, they were feeling understood. And that's what kind of gave us the idea of, like, hey, how do we provide even more of this value in a way that isn't just specific to K-pop, but can branch out into any profession in any kind of region of the world. And that's where we thought of creating Mindset, which we launched 14 months ago in February. And since February, we've just been actively learning, building, bringing on other, people onto the platform that are not K-pop artists, like Summer Walker, Amine, Black the Rapper, and even starting to branch out into actors. And the last thing I'll add is it's been a tremendous journey to kind of see how no matter what culture or background or language that you speak, there's so much more that I think really connects us and actually divides us. And our platform is designed in a way to really kind of showcase that. And through that, hopefully people feel, going back to the original kind of inception of it, more understood, seen, and less alone in their day-to-day struggles. So, yeah, did I forget anything?
Yeah, Brian, I just want to say I'm so glad you took that question, because you just crushed it out of the park, my man. Well done, well done. Yeah, so to that I just say ditto.
Thank you.
Yeah, but even taking a step back a little bit further, why we started a podcast. As you heard in the intro, I'm also Eric's manager, and podcasting we looked at as an easy way to stay in touch with fans on a week-over-week basis, right? Especially now in this digital age, it's really important to stay connected with your fans. And so when we started this in Eric's kitchen, it was pretty rough around the edges, wouldn't you say, Eric?
It was pretty bad.
Yeah. Audio quality was probably about a 3 out of 10, but
Sorry.
but we found that it really wasn't about that. I think Eric's fans and listeners, they kind of embraced the chaos, and they were understanding the podcasting nature and everything good that comes with audio, and learning in real time along with us. I think Mindset is just kind of the brainchild and all of the learnings that we saw through building like 15 plus podcasts at that point.
Yeah, so to tell a little bit more about Mindset itself and the products and how it's split out, we have a mobile app and we have a web app, which you can download, or you go to getmindset.com, and pretty much we have about 20 artists on it right now. We have a lot more coming in the coming months, but we have two types of content. We have collection content, which is more autobiographical, narrative storytelling, and we really work with artists, celebrities, and we have an extensive production process. We sit with them for hours, talk about their lives, talk about the highs and the lows and what they've been through, and their mental health journeys, and what they want to open up about, what they want to share with their fans and with the world. And the great thing is that I think we're coming to this point in time in media and in culture where we are able to be our true authentic selves without the lens of a filter. And I feel like fans want that now more than ever, because they want to feel heard, they want to feel related to, they want to feel less alone. And so when artists come to Mindset, they are here with the intention of opening up and telling their life stories. So we have collections which are pretty deep, they're longer form, they can range from 100 to 100, I think even 40 minutes, depending on the artist. And then we have boosters, and boosters, we thought, hey, what can we create that is a lot more easily digestible? It doesn't require me to sit through 10 to 20 minutes of a life story, which is great, but maybe right now I just feel down, or I feel really frustrated, or I feel a little sad, and I just want something to just hit that one emotion or that sentiment. And so we started creating things that go from 2 to sometimes 7 minutes, depending on the type of content. And we have like sleep stories, we have affirmations, we have morning boosters, we have evening wind down sessions. So we like to kind of think of it as like, listen to this booster when you're feeling XYZ, and trying to categorize what that emotion or that state of mind is. And so all of this, as we're telling you this, is very new. We're all, we're just over a year old, and we're still figuring it out as we're going. But I think the really cool, encouraging, exciting part is that as we've been creating essentially a brand new product, a brand new format, and a brand new type of audio and video content, the response that we're getting from our users, from our audience, from our fans has been incredible, in a way that we don't really know how to gauge exactly what we're seeing. But we have an incredibly engaged Discord channel of over 44,000 people who are at any point talking about mental health or the content on Mindset. We have in-person meetups where kind of like this, we're coming together, we're listening to content together, people are crying, sharing their life stories, and essentially we've created a community of like-minded users online who come together through the stories of celebrity, but then stay for the peer-to-peer interactions, the group therapy, the conversations, and the community that is being built. So that's what we're really, really excited about, and what we are trying to figure out how to make even better and to enhance. Right?
That is the goal.
Yeah. Did I miss anything?
Are you guys competing of like who can
I'm
make?
trying to show off. I'm trying to beat off Brian.
I feel like I'm not getting enough reps
Can I
in
add
here.
something?
Yeah, go for it.
No, I think just to piggyback off what Eric was saying, it's been very encouraging because truly what we're seeing right now is by having people of influence, these public figures, come out and kind of take that first step in talking about their experience with depression, anxiety, being bullied, the Asian American experience, it opens up and it kind of gives everybody else that kind of empowerment and courage to also share their own story. And that's something that we didn't really know was going to happen, but now as we have built this Discord, we're seeing it happen in real time every day. And so you see people taking content from our app or our website, taking it to the Discord, and then being like, hey, Eric talked about this, here's my own story. And so by having people that have made it, that people admire, kind of show that it's cool, it's okay to be vulnerable. It's created this amazing safe space and community that we can be prouder to be a part of. And so through that, the artists and the talent that we also work with, they see the community that we've built and they're like, hey, I want to also join that and join this movement that you guys are creating. And so it's only been, a little over a year, but just very positive, and we're excited to keep going.
Yeah, the only thing I'd add to that is for both the creators and the listeners, I think there is a lot to gain from it. For example, there are a lot of artists that want to share these stories, but they don't have the right platform, right? We know Instagram just isn't really the place to be preaching about mental health and kind of spamming IG stories. We know that Twitter is also not the safest space to have these meaningful conversations. And so opening it up on Mindset and having the artists have a place where whatever they say, it can't be misconstrued. We work very closely with the artists and the production team so that anything that they say, it's approved by them. It isn't like as risky in some ways as like doing like a huge piece with like a magazine where the journalist has like their own perspective or biases about this artist. And so there is that level of trust we build with the creator, but then also the fans. I think the resounding sentiment is like, this is somebody I look up to. This is somebody that I really admire, and they don't need to share these stories, but thank you for doing so. And in doing so, I feel seen or I feel less alone. And yeah, I think we're going to touch on a lot more of that in this discussion.
Should we keep going?
Yeah, we're just going like 100 miles an hour.
No, this is good. It segues us into kind of the main discussion for tonight, where we're going to be talking about a lot of things that you kind of highlighted as the, why you guys started this app and all these platforms to begin with. So I guess to kind of bring a little bit more clarity to the topic of mental health. Before we even start this discussion, I want to clarify what mental health even means. When we're talking about mental health and all these influences are, throwing the word mental health out there, what does that even suggest? So I'm going to go off of the super formal CDC definition. So mental health includes our emotional, psychological, and social well-being. It affects how we feel, think, and act. It also helps determine how we handle stress, relate to others, and make healthy choices. So with that being said, I want to first open up the discussion with Dr. Han about how is this mental health concept, how is this a public health related matter?
I was like, the mic is being passed over. So I think when we think about mental health, it can be very isolating and it can seem like a very individual experience. But if you think about the causes, the triggers, the impacts, even mental health treatment, they're actually extremely relational and social in nature. So, I mean, let's start talking about positive mental health. Laughter is contagious. When we are living the best lives ever, that impacts everybody around us. And on the flip side of that, when we're not feeling so great,
I'm so sorry. Could you put it a little bit closer?
Sure.
Thank you so much.
When we're not feeling so great, I think we need to turn to our supports. We need to turn to the people that we trust. And although that can feel kind of exhausting or it can feel tiresome, those relationships can get so much stronger through these conversations, right? So even though you might think of it as an individual experience, by nature it's relational. By nature, it impacts our communities. And there's this saying that says, there's no health without mental health. So if we want our communities, our groups, our own lives to be healthy, we have to begin by talking about mental health.
Thank you for that introduction, Dr. Han. And I think a very important topic for us to start talking about right now is what does mental health even look like in the digital space, right? With COVID times and even before that, you know, with social media and everything going on, I think it's really important that we talk about the digitalization of mental health interventions and what that may even look like, which is, I think, is something that Mindset is actually kind of alluding into and kind of stepping into. So a question for the Mindset team, whoever wants to take this on. So with close to 1 million downloads of Mindset, what are some bigger behavioral patterns or general patterns that you've noticed in terms of the app utilization and the users that are downloading the app? So just, you know, demographically or just any general patterns that you're noticing with the app usage.
Yeah, so our demographics, it's about 75% female. We do skew much younger. It's about 70% of our users are under the age of 29. And I guess when it comes to app utilization, it's kind of what I was mentioning a little bit earlier around using these stories as a jumping off point to a much larger discussion in a way that is healing to the people that consume the content. And so, you know, right now for us, we know we're not kind of the perfect end-to-end solution by any means, but just by normalizing that conversation, we are seeing the kind of after effects of it on like Twitter, on Instagram, and of course on our Discord. And so I would say the general sentiment, and we've never even marketed it this way, but if you look at the feedback, the user reviews, the phrase like, I feel seen, I feel less alone, I feel understood, those are like, they come up every time. And we've never really even pushed that narrative, but it truly is how people feel. And so, yeah, I'd say that's definitely the most common use case. What do you guys think?
I mean, I think, I'm trying to think of other use cases, but I think boosters is what I was alluding to earlier. I think I see a lot on my social feeds of I was feeling down or I didn't really have the courage to take the day on today, but I listened to your morning booster or somebody else's like affirmations and it just put me in a better mood. I know for me personally, I had like a very, this is embarrassing, I had a very important meeting a few weeks ago and I went on the app and I listened to a booster and it was just like, I can do this. I'm gonna do really well. And I did really well, but it was a thing of I couldn't figure out my nerves and I didn't know how to go about dealing with like this overwhelming emotion of anxiety. So I sat down, opened up my own app, and I sat there listening to boosters. And I think that's how a lot of people are using it. And the other thing that's really great is that I'm seeing is a lot of younger users are using it as a way to speak to their parents or their guardians about their mental health and how they're feeling or how they want to express themselves. And so what's really exciting is that we are still so early that people are still figuring out how to use it and we're learning with them. But all the signs that we're seeing, all the signals are very positive in normalizing and destigmatizing and enhancing and nurturing these, I think, very important conversations.
What's also been awesome is I think Mindset has given a lot of people identity. That's something that we didn't really even think of, but the more we talk to our users, that's another thing that people are so happy to be a part of our Discord because they feel like this nurturing, this safe space, the people that they've met through Mindset have given them a sense, kind of like purpose, identity. And it even allows us to do these offline events, as Eric mentioned. You know, we did about 1,000 tickets in April alone, and people were bringing their friends to the event. People would bring their parents to the event. And so it's been very actually surprising to see how it's much more than just an app. It feels like it's a movement, it's a community, it's a brand that people can really proudly kind of wear and be a part of. And I think a great kind of proxy for that is like people want our merch. People are asking like this, do you guys have, you know, can I buy what Eric's wearing? And it's because Mindset, it kind of has a meaning now because it's the content, it's the celebrities behind it that are giving it that purpose. And so, yeah, it's been awesome to see that what we're building it's much more than just an app. It's a mentality. It's something that you can be a part of.
Yeah, definitely. And I think you phrase that very well when you call this whole experience as like a movement, right? Starting these conversations with parents and giving that open platform for people to come and kind of share what they're experiencing. And it wouldn't be Hopkins if we don't talk about research. So, so I'm going to guide this question to Dr. Kaufman. Some of your more recent work is focused on the topic of social media, the digital space when it comes to mental health, and how it plays on our younger generations. So in your work, have you seen these apps and social media play a role in young people's mental health and care seeking? And if you want to share any about any of your previous research work and any studies that you've conducted to share a little bit more?
Sure. Thank you for having me tonight. Yes, so I think apps and social media that address these issues, as they've been saying, really normalize the issues and give people the courage to self-disclose, right? I'm a social psychologist by training, and we know that self-disclosure builds intimacy. Not in a romantic sense necessarily, but in being able to relate to other people. So when you see celebrities, influencers, et cetera, self-disclosing their own struggles, that gives people courage to do it themselves. We saw this with the hashtag #MeToo movement, right? And my team has done a little bit of research on this. In the #MeToo movement, it took celebrities self-disclosing their experiences with sexual harassment, and suddenly you saw hundreds of thousands of women primarily saying that we've experienced this too. And it opened up a dialogue, a discourse about this other very sensitive, stigmatized issue. And when you do it in a way that involves entertainment, then you can also draw in larger crowds of people, obviously. My team also did a research study where we looked at the show Euphoria, if you're familiar with it, on HBO. We were looking at reactions to the character Rue, right, who has mental health challenges, substance use issues, and we were looking at discourse around Rue on Reddit. And what we found in our content analysis was that the show Euphoria was giving people courage to talk about their own struggles with these same issues: substance use, mental health, violence related to those things. And that form of entertainment allows people to see their own experience as being normalized. And so then they have the courage to disclose. And then it does create this sense of community, whether it's you as an anonymous user on a subreddit, it doesn't matter. It makes you feel less alone. And it reduces that stigma and takes away this sensitivity around these topics.
And I think the topic of community kind of opens the door for another conversation. I know that some of your recent work also touched on the topic of mentorship, right? We use it in our social circles, in academic and professional settings. In the realm of mental health, what are the effects of mentorship, and how can we leverage a mentorship model with the younger generations, and what could this possibly look like within the digital space?
Well, my team's research regarding mentorship and mental health is really trying to open up conversations around this for young people in particular. So trusted adults, mentors, are people that you have a more intimate relationship with, right? It's quite different than being in a session with a therapist who can't reveal any of their own details or very little. Whereas a mentor is somebody who can say, you know, this is how I struggled and here's how I dealt with it. And let's see what the best option is for you. And so what our team is doing is wedding mentorship with the digital space and giving mentors tools to talk about these sensitive issues. Whereas young people are, and we've been hearing some of this in our conversations tonight, young people are often reluctant to talk about these things with their own parents, their own families, and they're more likely to talk about it with other trusted adults or even peers, people who have a little more experience than them. And so as a mentor, it's important to know how to handle those conversations in a non-judgmental way and to then direct someone who has struggles to the right services if that's what is required, or just giving them tips on how to handle these things.
Yeah, and I think you brought up a really great point in terms of, opening up these conversations. And I think this is a really good segue into speaking a little bit more on the Asian diaspora and particularly the Asian American, given that it is AAPI month. I want to guide this question to the mindset team, just in terms of the kinds of feedback and experiences that you've seen your listeners share on these mindset stories, and if there are any commonality or things that are changing, as some may think. So just any kind of feedback and experiences that your users have kind of shared on the platform.
In regards to more of an AAPI angle, correct?
I guess since the topic of it is AAPI, it can be, it doesn't necessarily have to be, but I think given the conversation tonight, I think it would be helpful for us to kind of get a blend of both.
Yeah, I mean, I think a lot of the first collections that we have on our app, including myself, are stories of Asian American artists. And I think while we have a lot of Asian American fans or community members who love to share that they feel heard and seen and connected through our stories, I think the overarching thing is about identity, and it's about finding a sense of self through these stories. Because I think the Asian American experience is very particular and unique to Asian Americans, but it can also apply to people who just feel out of place or are the children of immigrants, or if you are moving abroad or in a new situation. I think it's very common for people to feel like you don't belong. And surprisingly, so many of the artists on our platform have felt that way. And it's sometimes that, I guess, lack of being able to identify a certain way that's driven them to find and to really dig deep into to find what they're really good at, or communities, or how they overcome those struggles. And those are the stories that I think a lot of people really are attracted to and are able to directly apply to their own lives. And there's a lot more that I would love to say on AAPI identity, but I feel like it goes so much beyond the scope of the answer of the question. So I'll hold on that. But I don't know if you guys have any other thoughts in regards to kind of the reactions or the feedback.
Yeah, I think the immigrant story is a very common one. I think that's something that people talk about on Discord too, and also, I guess, relationships with parents. That's also been a very commonly talked about just topic, like, oh, my parents don't understand, or I really want to do this. Like, one of the most common questions we get is how do you know, or how do you talk to your parents if you know you have a passion and you want to pursue it? How do you have that conversation? And they'll ask us that, but they'll also ask other people within the community that same kind of question. And I think Eric's mindset specifically does touch on those topics too. And so, yeah. Is there anything else? Those are.
I had a really good point, and then I lost it because my ADHD just screams at me all the time.
I don't know, do you guys want to segue this into the first audio clip that you guys had?
So we have an audio clip that we'd love to share. This is from my collection. It's a conversation with my mother, and I think one of the great things that we do at Mindset is we allow artists to have conversations or bring people on who are important in their lives and to have discussions that may not easily be had, that are not easy to have on a regular cadence. And so this is more of a conversation with our mother, who was a very, she did not like that I pursued music. Let's put it that way. She was not the biggest fan, and for a little more context, even when I got to Korea and I was like, "Hey, Mom, I think I might make it," she said, "Jundoya, you will finally know how mediocre you are." And I was like, "Thank you. I'm gonna hang up. I love you too." And so that's where we started, and this is a conversation with my mother.
Yeah. Okay. Let's cue that episode.
You know, as a kid, my dream had always been to become a singer. You know, the same way that young kids used to want to be an astronaut or president. But apparently, like, these days, YouTuber and TikTok star is like the bigger deal. But, you know, as a kid, I was like, man, I'd love to be a singer. And, you know, part of it is my parents never allowed it. My parents were very, very much against it. And it was kind of like, oh, what if on the off chance, if I do make it, oh, my life's gonna change. But my mom was always like quick to be like, oh, you're not good. Don't worry about it. That would never happen. You know, I've shared this story before, and if you've heard of my podcast or you've been to my shows, you probably heard this story, but I wanted to call my mother, my mom, and I want her side of the story. I want her to share what was going on in her mind at that time. Because having a kid, especially your first kid, want to jump into something as risky as the entertainment business, that can't be easy. You know, so I'm in Korea right now. My mom's at home in Georgia. She hates interviews, but I convinced her to sit down with me and talk over Zoom. So you finally get to hear her. This is my mom. This is Mama Nam.
Actually, it was very fun watching you on the stage. But when you tell me you're going to be a singer, I thought it's going to be a very, very hard job. So I just want to go back to your, ordinary job for the job security. So because when you're in the college, you ask me, I remember you want to go in the American Idol. So I ask you, finish your college first and then do whatever you want to do. Because I didn't know my son, how great was singing. I mean, my English is so bad. I didn't know actually how you can sing so well. Because I just heard all the time you scream at the bathroom at the night, 2 a.m. But at the competition, I just realized you sing a song great.
How did you feel watching my last concert?
Amazing.
Yeah.
I cried, actually.
Why did you cry?
I got so emotional.
Mm.
I just knew how hard you practice to show that I can speak.
Mm-hmm.
I just feel your effort as a mom all the time. I mean, actually, parents learn a lot from their children. I respect your courage. I told you that you're doing great. I'm so thankful about that.
Thank you, Mom. Love you. Appreciate it. So my mom just had surgery, and she was very, very much opposed to speaking on anything because her voice has changed because of the surgery. But thank you, Mom, for making the time and for sharing your side of the story with us.
Yeah.
Did one of you guys want to speak on that?
That was my mom. No, but I think it's special. I think sorry, as an artist, you're oftentimes flying through your career. There are so many things happening. You know, I'm doing a million things at once, but to take a step back and to be able to have these conversations and reflect on life with the people that mean the most to you, it doesn't come naturally. So Mindset in many ways provides that opportunity for a lot of artists to do it. And so we have a lot of our artists walk away from the production process feeling and telling us, I think I just went through like days of therapy and I feel so much clarity, and I've learned things about myself and with the people around me as I've been going through this process, and the intention is that it has an impact on the listeners and the audience members. And I just remember what I wanted to say earlier when Brian was saying that, you know, a lot of people when they come on the app, they feel very alone and they feel like, you know, there's a lot of immigrant children or people who identify XYZ who feel very alone. But then you come in and you step into it and you say, oh my gosh, everybody feels this way. Everybody is feeling the same thing. We just haven't talked about it, and I don't even know who or where or how to talk about it. And I think that's what we're trying to provide. So you hear something like this and you go onto our Discord or on the app, and then people say, this resonated with me in XYZ way. Me too, me too, me too. And then we have groups of friends form a community and a movement that's been developing, which has been truly magical to witness. So yeah.
Yeah, and I think what's really cool about the clip that you guys shared is, you know, kind of seeing the end product, right? I mean, I'm sure that, you know, the whole experience that your mom went through in terms of, you know, being opposed to you becoming a singer-songwriter and going this route in the creative arts. But I'm pretty sure that during that lengthy process and that season, it was a very long, difficult experience. And I think that's an experience that maybe a lot of our students here may be experiencing as undergrads, graduate students, whoever you are. I think that's a very relatable experience. And so with that, I kind of want to segue this question to Dr. Han, since you working at the Counseling Center and also being very involved in representing the Asian diaspora voices on campus, especially in the realm of mental health. How have you seen the experiences of students on our campus change over the years? And if you have any general experiences you'd like to share with the group tonight.
I think first I just want to start with a reaction to, you know, a lot of building off of what you're saying, this story with you and your mom. I think with social media and online presence, there's so much power in a meme or a hashtag, but that is such a snippet. It doesn't hit at all of the growth. And I think there's the storytelling gives you everything. You experience the emotion with it. And you know, just that one story. I have my own story about how I said, I'm gonna be a psychologist, and my parents were like, what? What is that? What do you do? Do you go work in a hospital? What do you do? And I'm clearly not doing that in any way, but there's a piece of it that we can all connect to. But when we invest the time in learning that story and hearing that story, and then internalizing it, what is my part of that story? What does it feel like for me? So I love the snippet for that, and that does relate to a lot of the work that I do. With Asian American like mental health therapy, I think a lot of times about like maximization, minimization. So a lot of wanting to highlight our strengths, our achievements, but then any of our perceived weaknesses, we almost want to hide them, not talk about them, whether because of shame or just, I'm not going to put that out there. And I think this happens in any environment where there's a lot of intelligent, ambitious, driven people. But there's a uniquely Asian layer to this. So if you are really pushing for education or career, what is the name of the college you got into? What company are you working for? And it's not just financial stability, it's can you prove that you're going to be more stable than we were growing up? So there's this push for a lot of these external drivers. And, you know, I see this changing over the years, but growing up, a lot of our parents were not educated to have conversations around this. So the literacy around psychology, around mental health, they weren't taught that. So what happens is you now go towards these external markers of success. I'm good enough because this. I gained these things. But the internal conversations might not be happening. So then I see students come to college and grad school. A lot of those questions are still not answered, but then everyone looks around and everyone else seems to have figured it out. What's wrong with me? So a lot of my work with my Asian clients, it focuses on that internal experience. Who am I? What are my values? Does it match my family, my culture, my community? And if it doesn't, what do I do with it? It doesn't mean you have to now move out of your house and take huge risks. There could be micro changes that we can make, or maybe it is a huge change. But where is my sense of power, my sense of choice in all of that? That is a lot of the work that we've been doing, or that I've been doing in my work. And again, over the years, what I'm seeing is more people having the language around it. We were having a conversation earlier about labeling our emotions. I didn't know how to do that when I was a kid, but now more and more people are saying, yeah, there's a difference between sadness and frustration, or there's a difference between I'm isolated or I'm lonely. So there's a lot of nuance in the emotions, and just having words to label our experience immediately gives more power to it as well.
I think also a great discussion that we've actually had in the back while we were talking about all of this is the topic of, a lot of Hopkins students experiencing what we call the imposter syndrome, right? I think all the students feel it, all of the undergrads feel it, and it's a very common experience that a lot of us students, and I'm sure faculty, feel here on campus.
Faculty too.
Yeah, yeah. So a lot of faculty also acknowledge that as well, right? So let's talk about the imposter syndrome. This is a topic, a general open topic that all of us can contribute to. So if anyone wants to start us off.
How should we start? How do we start this off? Should we share our own experiences with imposter syndrome?
Yeah, let's do it.
Yeah, I think we talk about this a lot. But I myself, that's probably, I think imposter syndrome is probably something I've dealt with seemingly my entire adult life. And it is something that I'm consistently working on. And I was telling them backstage, even for myself, I kind of constantly feel how did I get where I am? And am I, is this right? Do I deserve to be here? And I think for myself, what's really helped me is being able to talk to other startup founders and be able to hear about their experiences, because just mindset's purpose, around imposter syndrome, it is so much more common than even I imagined. And the more people I talk to, I realize, even backstage, us talking, it is such a universal experience, and it's maybe something to work on, but it's okay to feel that way. It's okay to not be okay. And I think simply by labeling it and kind of accepting that I am struggling with it, it's just, I think, gives me comfort and peace, and also kind of empowers me to keep on pushing myself and knowing that okay, I'm going to keep challenging myself and I'm doing the best that I can, but it doesn't necessarily mean I am an imposter. So I can, do you guys have anything to share?
Yeah, what I'll add to that is, Brian, he went to Columbia. He actually dropped out his senior year to help start Dive Studios and Mindset. He also was a soccer player there, and now he leads a team of over 30 people, despite being probably one of the youngest. And so when I hear that, it kind of makes my heart hurt, but I also understand where it can come from on paper, right? But, you are good enough, and you're an exceptional leader, I have to say. But yeah, I guess I took the mic just to encourage you, saying you're doing just fine, dude.
I appreciate it. Thank you.
Let's talk about this backstage some more.
Process.
I think it's such a universal thing, like you were saying. I've dealt with it for much of my career. I was supposed to be a strategy consultant at Deloitte, and I somehow became a singer, and I found myself on every TV commercial, billboard, bus advertisement. I was Mr. Trivago Korea. I was selling literally anything you can think of. I was selling women's pads. I'm not kidding. Yes.
Eric was his face was on the sticker of an apple, saying, "This is an apple."
Stop it. I was on a lot of things, but it was crazy for me because I was like, I don't fully understand Korean. I don't even know like how I got to where I am. I'm at a party with Psy and Lee Byung-hun and the biggest Korean actors in the world. You name them, they were there, and I was like, why am I here? This makes no sense. And I still feel that way. Like I'm in interviews with Robert Downey Jr. or I don't know, like Matt Damon or whoever. And it's always, it was always shocking to me. But then at a certain point, you have to say like, okay, I'm probably here because I did something right. Because I'm doing something okay. Maybe I'm not the best, and I think it's probably me being self-critical and me wanting more and better for myself, and me being very humble, but it doesn't mean that I don't belong here, and it doesn't mean that I'm less valuable or worthy. And then you sit there and you find one or two people who you can connect with, and they're all just like, why are we here? Why? It's Park Bo-gum and me, and we're like, why are you here? I don't know why I'm here. And it's this back and forth.
How do you think I feel when I'm sitting next to Eric?
Why are you here?
I'm not even thinking that because it's so ridiculous. Eric is actually in conversation. I'm just eating next to him. It's not even going through my brain.
But yeah, I mean, I think it's such a real thing, and it's just constant. But I think at the end of the day, like the way I've justified it is like it is an internal urge and an internal want to be better and to pursue your craft or your studies or your profession at a higher degree. And the reason you're here, the reason any of us are here, is because we deserve to be here. And once you come to terms with that, it's a lot easier to have a sense of self and a sense of identity that empowers you to pursue whatever it is in a stronger way. And I think this is something that we briefly touched on while we were backstage, and this kind of extends to the Asian American thing. But for so much of our lives as Asian Americans, we've never really had a sense of self. We've always felt other. In the States, we're too Asian. In Asia, we're too American. And so where and how do we interact with the world around us? And I think we're like very, very well primed to have imposter syndrome in that sense. But I think the way that this way, changing my perspective or my mindset on how I approach it is, we are third cultured in a way that makes us more powerful than others. That's how at least what I tell myself. Because we have unique perspectives that nobody else does. We have unique experiences that nobody else does. And that puts us in a unique place to solve problems and to create things in a way that nobody else can. And I think we've never been able to label it that way, which gives us imposter syndrome, but that's how I'm labeling it now, and that's how I want, and I hope, a lot of us can do moving forward. So, sorry, that was really long. I'm gonna stop talking.
I think a piece of that I want to jump on is so much of it feels internal, like, wait, I think I'm not good enough, but there is a group and a societal piece to this too. If you're in an environment that is constantly telling you you're not good enough, it's not your fault, right? And when you can surround yourself with people who laugh with you, who joke with you, and really are saying, you don't feel good enough, but that's okay. I see this in you. I can affirm you. I can support you. There's so many aspects of that as well. So with imposter syndrome, again, that goes saying before, that internal versus external, there's that gap. But if you're willing to take off that mask, to show your vulnerability, and to listen to other people's vulnerability and join in with them, that is part of the solution towards addressing imposter syndrome. And there's like strength in the numbers that can come from that. So that relational piece, again, I just wanted to make sure we highlight that.
Yeah, and I don't know how many of the members of the audience are out there. Who's in the Department of Mental Health that's here? My department, woo, yeah. So this is an active conversation that we always have, right? Being the Department of Mental Health at Bloomberg, right? So we're always talking about it with faculty and amongst each other about this topic of imposter syndrome. How are we here? How are we at the Bloomberg studying what we're doing with all these amazing faculty and researchers, producing whatever research is out there that's changing lives and changing the world? And it's an active discussion that we have, but what's really cool about being in that type of environment in the Department of Mental Health is that we all acknowledge the importance and the value and significance of mental health. And I think that us being able to openly discuss about it and talk about, yeah, I'm experiencing imposter syndrome right now as we're in class. You know, for us to be able to actively have that kind of discussion really opens the platform for us to share other things about our life, whether it's our mental health or whether it's our previous experiences. A lot of what Eric was mentioning about, you know, experiencing this whole like dimension of I'm Asian, but I'm also American. What does that even look like? So there are a lot of these cool conversations that we've had as a lot of our students are of different heritage background. So I think, you know, it kind of opens this conversation of how much more we need to open up within our community about having these discussions about mental health, right? And creating that community around that topic. So I think that we've covered quite a bit about just the current themes that are happening around the space of mental health right now. So I want to kind of segue our conversation into more of actionable steps, right? Let's talk about the future. As future researchers, future social and policy changers, whatever you guys want to be, as a future generation of advocates, basically, what are, I guess this is something that you guys can kind of speak on in your own perspective spaces. So whether that's in research, mindset advocacy work, or in mentorship or as a researcher, what are the next steps? What can we do as a next generation of you know, the world changers to change the stigma that surrounds mental health? Anyone can take that. I know it's a really big question. But this can even start in like everyday conversations, right? How can we become better conversationalists within this space, whether we are on the receiving end or whether we are the ones sharing? Basically, like how can we be more proactive about having these types of conversations?
I can start. So a little social psychological theory for you. The theory of social learning, right? We often learn by watching other people. And I think social media allows us to amplify that, right? Especially when celebrities are using the platform, their platform and social media platforms to model behavior. So that's the beauty of something like Mindset, is that you are modeling vulnerability, and that's particularly powerful given your heritage, given your gender too. I mean, one thing we haven't talked about is the fact that men are often the least likely to talk about mental health concerns, or they externalize it in some way through their behavior. But when we see more people modeling that vulnerability, modeling how they've sought help for concerns or how they've gained the support of their social networks, then it allows other people to learn those strategies as well.
No, it's tough to follow. You should go.
I think it's being a part of these conversations is probably like the best thing to do. Only because I think while mental health is such like a buzzword these days, and it feels like it's still, people are still figuring it out, and it's still an active conversation. And the thing is, mental health changes too. Like we as people, as we struggle or as we figure out our mental health journeys, we're going through different seasons of our lives. And so for me personally, I think it's a matter of always staying in tune with how I'm feeling and how I'm doing, so and how does that affect the people around me and the stuff that I create and put out into the world? So having a good understanding of my mental health and having a good understanding of how to have the conversations around it is probably the best way to equip not just myself, but my people, the people around me, in you know, advocating for mental health and hopefully creating a future in a world where it is completely normal and mental health is just as important as any other type of health. So that's, I don't know, maybe that was a kind of a cop-out of an answer, but that's how I feel.
Yeah, I think another part of it is, I think being able to affirm those around you that it's okay to feel a certain way or to be going through something. I'm like thinking introspectively. I feel like by working on mindset, it's had a very positive impact in my ability just to just kind of recognize these things and talk about it. And I feel like if I think about it, at least within our company, between the three of us, it has just become a part of our lives. And through that, it just feels so much easier and almost liberating to talk about these things. And but I do still remember, even in college, like probably 2-3 years ago, it was still something that I didn't talk about very much. And it wasn't that I wasn't struggling with it. I think college was probably the toughest period of my life mentally, but I kind of bottled. I didn't know who to talk to. I didn't know if people would judge me. And so I do think it's like, if you know someone that is dealing with something, or if you're dealing with something with yourself, like I think encouraging those around you to kind of take that approach of like, it's okay to not be okay, and like, we're not going to judge you, we're going to affirm you, it's okay to not be okay. And so yeah, I think that's the least that I think we can do.
Yeah, and I think it's some of the things that you guys shared is really cool, just talking about, and Dr. Kaufman, you brought it up in the sense of, men advocating for mental health and, being figures of openly discussing mental health issues and topics, I think is a really cool, just it changes people's perspectives, right? When people are seeing, male celebrities or public figures that are openly speaking out about whatever mental health things that they want to talk about and being vulnerable with their audience, I think it speaks volumes, right? Especially in our current day and age. I was actually personally using the app myself during the last couple of weeks preparing for this MC, but it's really cool because, throughout my day-to-day, it's like there's opportunities and different topics to cover in regards to the status of my mental health, the status of my day-to-day life, whether it's the pressure of academics, whether it's personal things I'm going through. There's always a relevant topic to kind of give me a couple minutes to like, okay, Amanda, like you got this, like there are other people out there experiencing other things, and today's problems is going to be a very tiny bit of a sand, like a little ant of a problem 5 years later, tomorrow, whatever that may look like. So thank you guys for sharing those audio snippets. I just wanted to see if any of our panelists had any last minute things that they want to discuss before we go into our Q&A section.
Last comment I'll make is about the beliefs and attitudes we have about mental health. A lot of them can be a little bit negative, and stigma reduction is about changing those beliefs and attitudes. So you can have a panel of experts give you facts, statistics, share all the research, and that might not be as effective as hearing a personal story. So that new information can have a huge impact on changing your internal biases and perceptions and attitudes, not just about bipolar disorder, but also about hip hop and K-pop and everything else. So hearing the stories, I'm gonna bring it back to, we have to be personal, we have to be sharing, we have to learn from one another. That social learning model that Dr. Kaufman was talking about. It's research, but it's also a lot of the contact, the personal interactions we have with one another.
I'll just add that, I think it's important to point out that mental health struggles are a spectrum, right? So I think there's often this misconception that you don't need help. You don't need a therapist, you don't need to talk to someone, you don't need to share your feelings unless you have bipolar or some sort of clinical diagnosis. And it's encouraging to me to see young people in particular moving to a place where we are recognizing as a society, and the social norms are moving towards, we need to talk about all of it, even our daily struggles. Imposter syndrome, feeling anxious about a presentation like this, or I'm really upset about something that happened. Those are mental health struggles too. And those forms of mental distress can affect other parts of your life, your physical health, your relationships, et cetera. So I think talking about mental health on the full spectrum, from more minor everyday mental distress to clinical disorders, addressing all of that is important.
We good? Okay, great. So
Hit us with the questions.
All right, so now we're going to go into a Q&A segment for tonight. I know that when you guys were registering, we had a little section where you guys can submit any questions that you guys might have for any of our panelists. So we picked some recurring themes and some questions that really stood out to us. So this is going to be kind of like a shoot and fire, I guess. It's open to anyone. But the first question is actually going to be geared towards the Mindset team. So while working with artists from a variety of different backgrounds and nationalities on mindset, are there any key differences that you noticed when speaking with American-based or American-raised versus non-American artists about their mental health or the way that they approach the topic?
I can answer that. I sit more heavily on the production side, so helping specify what episodes, what are the topics, that kind of stuff. But I think naturally, if you are raised in the States, there's a little bit more of an openness to discussing mental health. But more than just where you raised, I think it's the industry that you're in. I feel like K-pop in general is very guarded, and having conversations about mental health is very difficult. So even when we first started, we bring up mental health and people would run for the hills. I think it's seeing that in the States and with certain groups such as BTS, they're very open about mental health. It's kind of destigmatized, the conversation, but it's still very taboo. And my personal experience is when I was in Korea and I was going through all sorts of things, I think I was depressed, I was anxious, I was having panic attacks, like everything that you think you could go through, I think I was going through it, and I was like, I think I need help. And my label said no, because they said if that got out, it would kill my career. And so they did not want to help me find treatment. And so it was like me begging to find somebody to talk to that got me there. But even then, it was in Korean, and I could barely speak Korean. So all I could say was like, I'm not happy, and I'm so sad, and I'm angry, and all these things. And so I think more than is it where you raised or where you based, it's just right now, Asia and K-pop, they're still on the very, very early stages of discussing mental health and wellness. And so we're here, I think we're playing a very important role because we've built rapport with artists. I'm an artist myself, but also as we've been doing podcasts for years, we've built, some trust. But then also with the management teams, we are here to say, we're not here to blow up a story and say, look at this person, they have an issue. That's not what we're trying to do. We're here to tell a story if and when you are ready to open up about it and to help further that conversation. And if you're not ready, that's fine. But when you are, let us know and we can help you with that. And so that's kind of, I think, the approach that we've been taking, but it is encouraging to see that it is slowly becoming more of a daily conversation topic in Asia and hopefully, throughout the world.
Yeah, that's amazing to hear. Unfortunate to hear about like the previous experiences that you've had trying to seek mental health support. But at the same time, it's encouraging to know that this is an active movement, like you identified earlier. This is, the research, the studies, people's open perspective about, receiving mental health. I think it's becoming more and more of a bigger platform for people to speak about. So I think it's really cool that, we have you guys here to kind of talk a little bit more about it. So thank you for sharing that. We have a second question. This one's a fun one to answer, I guess, for anyone who wants to take this. What is the best way to balance having healthy screen time and using mental health resources that require additional screen usage?
I said this earlier, the latter part doesn't count as screen time. I think it's, there are things that are enriching and that are additive to your life and to your mental health or to your just general education. I feel like so much of what we do is now from a screen, and that's just the way that we are working right now. I think the harmful part can come from social media. So if you're being very cognizant and aware of how much time you're spending on that, I think is the most important part. But like, for example, I love to read newspaper articles or like the Atlantic or the New Yorker or New York Times, and that's all through a screen. So I don't like to think of that as
real screen time, quote unquote. But that's just me. I'm sure there's a better scientific medical response. Please enlighten us.
So actually, the research on screen time is inconsistent because we're struggling as a field to figure out how to define quality screen time versus more mindless screen time. And I'll actually say that social media can be really beneficial. I remember breastfeeding my baby in the middle of the night, being on social media, and that was so helpful to me as a new mother because I was able to, in real time, connect with other women who were breastfeeding in the middle of the night and feel less alone. So was that harmful screen time? No, that probably was beneficial to my relationship with my baby. But all joking aside, I'll say that, when we have healthy boundaries around screen time, when we recognize that social media is no longer serving us in a positive way, we turn it off. When we don't doom scroll through the news, when we don't use it in the middle of the night, unless you're up breastfeeding, and it's interrupting our sleep, then those are not healthy patterns.
Yeah, no, for sure. I don't know if you any iPhone users out there, but the weekly your screen usage notification, that drives me insane because it makes me feel like I've been on my phone all day. But really, a lot of it is like Zoom calls and all these like school-related things. So I think really it's the part where we need to be a little bit more introspective of ourselves, right? How are we managing our time? How are we actually utilizing our free time on these social media platforms? And Dr. Kaufman mentioned, it can be a very useful, resourceful platform, but at the same time, are we just sitting there scrolling and vegging out, or are we actually being proactive about the utilization of these platforms? So I guess this next question can go to anyone as well, is how can we change the mindset towards counseling and receiving mental health services?
I think you know what I'm going to say, talking about it. Sharing, not being scared to say, yes, I've experienced anxiety and depression, I've talked to somebody, or I've tried medication. Sharing the positive and the negative experiences, again, knowing what others are doing and being willing to be saying that out loud. I think also our profession can do more to make counseling and therapy accessible to all populations. So it starts with representation. We need therapists of color. It says a lot that I'm one of the only psychologists at Hopkins who identifies as Asian. That's something we need to work on, right? And I think at the Counseling Center, we're trying to find ways for students to talk with us that's not traditional counseling. So we offer informal chats. My chat hours have been booked all semester, and I can tell students are hungry to talk to somebody where it doesn't feel like formal counseling. They just want to come, learn about me, and learn about what counseling is. So I think both sides really do have to do a lot of work to try to make counseling more accessible.
Yeah, that's a great point that you bring up, because especially during these the last couple of years of COVID and everyone having to socially distance and self-isolate. And I think it created a very negative space in the sense that a lot of people felt very alone. And it did put a large population of people in this very vulnerable state, right? Especially people who thrive off of community and who really thrive off of social opportunities. And so as we're getting into this, we're still in the pandemic, but as we're getting into this tail end and the post-pandemic phase, I think it's really important for us to kind of retune that back in, right? As social beings here, really creating that platform and that space for people to start talking about mental health. And I think it says a lot for us to carry these types of conversations in campuses like Hopkins, as people who are future world changers and advocates for this kind of space. So I think it's really helpful for us to kind of visit that topic, especially in regards to, just feeling like, as an Asian American, we can't really voice anything, or we can't go to therapy because it just feels like such a stigmatized event, But really having that informal platform where you can freely speak with someone, I think is a very helpful resource for all of our students and for anyone out there, really. So thank you for sharing that as well.
I have a quick question on that.
Yeah.
So I know we're talking a lot about like community, and I think like the Discord channel, one of the added benefits is that it is anonymous, and like when you do hear someone's story, you don't feel like you're shouldering the entire burden. You may share that experience or can provide some sort of feedback. I guess my question is, at what point does it move beyond family and friends and sharing that you do need to see a professional? Because we do know that like if you just there are people that will disclose maybe too much, and even to that person it becomes emotionally burdensome in some way. So what are those boundaries that you would advise?
I think everybody should be in counseling, and we can all benefit from counseling. But one of the lines that we talk about is when it starts to negatively impact your life. When you're noticing, I can't do the things that I used to do, or I know I could attain a certain level, but my mental health is getting in the way and it's holding me back, that might be a time to talk. And there's no one definition of what therapy or treatment looks like. We talked about mentorship before. That's such an effective form of getting support and getting help. So when it really starts to negatively impact your life, your school, your performance, or even just your quality of life, when that starts to get impacted, it could help to just reach out.
Yeah, for sure. And thank you for sharing all of that. And I guess a fun question here that we have for our mindset team. A couple questions came in asking about challenges that you guys have experienced as a team in starting or creating mindset. I don't know which part of that you guys want to tackle. Free for all.
Oh, man. Which one should we talk about?
Let's talk high-level startup stuff.
High levels? Okay.
Let's talk everything.
Yeah, let's okay, I'll say what I think is top of mind for me, and then you guys can go. I think responsibility has been one of the toughest things. Responsibility to each other, but then also to our team, to our investors. We have a lot of stakeholders, a lot of people that believe in us, and I think that is something that is very challenging because, in a startup, there's so much uncertainty. Things are constantly changing. There's a lot of whiplash. It's an emotional roller coaster. And for us, it's we have amazing people on our team, people that are also taking big risks. A lot of them have families, they have kids. And I think for us, it's this constant just burden. Burden, maybe that's a strong word. I think responsibility to really do right by them and really make sure that they feel like we're doing our absolute best and not trying to, waste their time. There's so much risk that they're also taking on. And so I think that's kind of what keeps me up at night. I think it's what keeps me going, and it keeps me just making sure I'm doing everything I can possibly do to make sure, this can be successful. And that's I think that's become increasingly more so over the past, 6 months to a year. And our team is now around 35 people, and it's starting to really become wow, there's so much responsibility, and we have to make sure that we're doing our absolute best to really live up to kind of, those expectations. But yeah, that's immediately what came to my mind. Yeah.
I think for some of the other things is, again, this is all new. It's never been done before. It's never really been created. We're creating a net new product. So there is no right answer. And it's this uncertainty and lack of roadmap in many ways that has us always kind of second guessing, is this the right decision? Is this the right way to go? Are we doing this the right way? And that kind of probably adds to this responsibility part of us always being very, maybe overthinking things. So we're always in our heads, and because of that, we're always on. And so it's always easy to work too much and to get to a point where we potentially burn out. And so I think it's finding that balance and striking that balance that's been very, very hard to do. And obviously there's also this dynamic where we're co-founders, but we're also brothers. And so it's a very interesting dynamic where you know, when we first started, there were, I think, a lot of disagreements and arguments, but we have to be able to separate in the same way that we separate and like identify our emotions. We have to look at a situation and say, is this startup co-founder conversation, or is this brother family conversation where I can say, I don't like you because you're my little brother and you're being mean right now, or I don't believe in your direction because product-wise I don't think this is the right way. So like it's being able to label and identify the right moments and what the conversation is around that we've had to learn how to do very well. But I think at the end of the day, what's really good and positive for our mental health and everything is that we are brothers, and at the end of the day, all of us have the best interest of the company and each other at heart, and we know that's what we fall back to. And so there isn't this lack of trust or mistrust or second guessing each other's intentions, which allows us to really focus on what we're really good at doing. So, you know, those are some of the difficulties, but also in many ways the positives, I think, that come along with building this company.
Yeah, I would also just add off of that, like, I think mental health, taking care of each other's mental health and our own mental health has been extremely, I think, challenging. And I mentioned it earlier, but the emotional roller coaster of doing a startup is something that we're still trying to kind of self-regulate. And like, it is very tough because we'll have an amazing day, like something amazing happened. The next day, it's like our entire world like is like about to crumble. And so we're like constantly like trying to like support each other and be like, hey, like, we've been through this like 100 times at this point. We know it's gonna get better. Let's just believe in the process and keep going. But it's it all comes with building something new, building something that hasn't been done before, because there isn't a blueprint, there isn't a roadmap. And it's like every new piece of content we put out there, it's like a new like iteration of an experiment, and sometimes it works and sometimes it doesn't. And so yeah, I think kind of being able to withstand that emotional roller coaster is something that we're constantly trying to work on.
The reason why I'm laughing is like, you know, Brian is, you know, he's being very vulnerable right now and kind of saying exactly how he's feeling, which I think is great. But you know, the other day, just another typical week, the fire alarms were pulled, and Eric and I are looking at each other. We're like, oh my God, like, what is going on? What is going on? And I look over at Brian and I was like, leader, well, what should we do? And he looks over at me, he's like, I don't know right now, but as we always do, we'll figure it out. And he just walks out of the room. And I was like, wow, this guy is so cool. And it wasn't always like this, you know? It's just, through time, there has been like, there is like character development, I will say.
Brian's come a long way. Brian's come a very long way. He's also come a long way in labeling his emotions, where a few weeks ago, I'm about to go on stage, he's in LA, and we just get a text and goes, I'm going to cry. And then I was like, I'm about to go on stage in front of 3,000 people. I was like, are you okay? What's going on? No response. Just not, will not respond.
Do not disturb.
We call each other, is he okay? What's going on? I'm not with him. What's happening? What's happening? And I was like, well, time to sing happy songs. And I jump on stage.
But we find out a few days later that Brian has learned to start labeling his emotions. So he was like, hey, you know, that time, you know, I was just labeling my emotion. And I was like, so you just like threw out a text message, no context, in the middle of the night, and then walked away. Interesting.
Let me label that emotion. It's called anxiety and panic that you gave us, okay?
But
we're in this together. We're in this together, so yeah.
But yeah, but it is a lot of fun. Regardless of all the stress, we're figuring it out as we go. But again, I feel so blessed to be working with my brothers on this, and I hope it works out. I really do.
Me too.
I'm loving this trio, this dynamic here, right? I guess this is an unscripted pop question I'm going to throw to you guys. I guess talking about like your guys' challenges and experiences you guys have gone through creating Mindset, I guess we can kind of close our conversation just in terms of what is the future of Mindset? Where do you guys see this going? What do you guys want to accomplish through all of this?
Do you want to go? You can do it.
I'll take a first stab at it.
Go for it.
Okay, I'll keep it short. I think for us, we like to think in like 3 to 5 year horizons. And what I think really energizes us and gets us excited is the ability to build a platform and an experience where anybody can come into the app and they can be like, hey, I'm feeling a certain way. And they can look that feeling up and they can see stories from all these different public figures, regardless of profession. You'll see stories around depression from musicians to athletes to actors to entrepreneurs to thought leaders to just other professionals. And I think for us, it's to really kind of build a platform that does showcase just how okay it is to not be okay and look at all these people that, regardless of where they come from or who they are, like they all kind of deal with these universal human experiences and challenges. And so, we're extremely excited to kind of build out that vision, and we're taking baby steps. Like we have our first actor joining the platform next month, and we're talking to a few athletes. And so that's kind of, 3 to 5 years, how we want it to really kind of develop and ultimately be like a true resource to a lot of people. Like being able to just instantly go in there and just know like, okay, all these people, they're dealing with the exact same thing that I'm going through, and you can find, inspiration and empowerment through that.
Yeah, I think the way that we've been trying to think about it is, I used to love TED Talks. And I didn't know who these people were, but I knew that if I listened to it, I would walk away with something very powerful. And so I would just start binging TED Talks. I think in the same way, you may not know who this Indian pop star is, but you know that at the end of this story, there's going to be something really incredible about perseverance or overcoming some sort of adversity. So having an incredible catalog of incredible people that no matter who they are, you have something that you can relate to them with. That's kind of the goal and the vision and where we hope to go, and to bring that not only online but offline, and to really normalize these conversations in person with the community. I think that's kind of where we hope to be, and hopefully we'll see you guys in the community somewhere, somehow. Yeah.
Thank you guys for sharing. Does anyone else have any last minute things that they want to add to the conversation, or just kind of end notes?
I want to evaluate the effectiveness of mindset. No, seriously, the evidence and the research around the effectiveness of apps like this and media to promote health in general is thin. And I think you're really on the cusp of something exciting. And so having evidence that goes with it, that it's, not just what goes on in the discussion forums related to the app, but how are people's lives really changing? Are they seeking the help that they need? That'll be important to highlight.
Yes, please. Please work with us. We would be honored.
I like that little ed note there, Dr. Kaufman. We were talking about this backstage, and so this is perfect. But Dr. Han, do you want to say something?
One last comment. I want to put a challenge out to everybody, not to just be a passive listener or a passive observer. They are great, and nobody's perfect. You can be a superstar, and you can be vulnerable. So as you listen, take in, and what is your story? What is your narrative that you would share if you had a platform? So kind of wanting to just put that challenge out there for everybody.
Yeah, and I think that was actually a perfect segue into what I wanted to kind of end tonight's discussion with is, we are kind of in a great time and place right now to be talking about mental health, right, with everything that's been going on. And being here in an educational setting in a school, I think it's a perfect spot for us to start these conversations about mental health and being proactive about taking care of your own mental health as well, too. So I want to thank you guys all for coming here tonight. And if we can give a round of applause to our panelists here tonight as well. And I also wanted to give a big shout out to our event team here tonight that spent many, many hours and many stressful times putting this event together. So first I wanted to shout out Kyu Sang Han, who's in charge of filming back there, or over here. He was just hopping around doing a lot of things. And then we also have Kue Vo and Justin Sung, who were backstage assisting us. And then we also have Pyo Kim and Scott Price, who assisted us with AV and tech tonight. And then we wanted to also thank Jenny Carpenter, Isabel Veloso, Estelle Young, and Alex for helping us with the check-in. And then Isaac Suh and Kat Katamura for ushering and assisting also with check-in as well. And then last but not least, our event lead, Salumi Lopez oh my gosh, I'm so sorry, I keep butchering your name. But Salumi Lopez da Silva Duarte, also known as Sam, who kind of had speared all of this, put this all together, so if we could give her a round of applause as well. So thank you guys all for showing up tonight. I know it was a very late hour, but we're very glad that you guys were here and were active participants in this discussion. Just for the interest of time, we do have to clean up and take everything down in a timely manner. So if you guys have any socializing, any conversations that need to happen, if you guys can do that outside of the auditorium, that would really help our team. But thank you for coming here tonight and have a great evening.